Welcome to the Sommelier Series by Nagarro. This is our episode 9. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. And today is a really good one, special one. I'm absolutely thrilled and honored to have Dr. Sudipta Seal with me today. And Dr. Seal is the Trustee Chair, Pegasus, and University Distinguished Professor at University of Central Florida. If I start listing all his credentials, it will take the entire 1 hour. I'll just briefly mention his material manufacturing expertise led to discovery of groundbreaking applications in regenerative nanomedicine. He has been inducted into the Florida Hall of Fame of Inventors. He is elected World Academy Ceramics Academician and a recent recipient of ASM International Albert Sevier Material Achievement Award. He has more than 400 journal papers, close to 90 issued patents. As I said, I can go on and on. His breakthrough research has created a lot of innovations in aerospace, sustainability, even cleaning oil spills and stuff like that. So, Dr. Seal, welcome. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Kanchan, giving the opportunity to speak to you. We go long back in early 90s in our alma mater, Indian Institute of Technology at Kharagpur. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and we're very happy to answer and discuss questions that you may have.
Absolutely. And yeah, we go long back. I also know Sudipta as our goalkeeper of the soccer team of our champion soccer team. So that's, yeah, we definitely go long back. And to the audience, please feel free to ask questions. We would keep some time towards the end to ask all your audience questions to Dr. Seal, right? So maybe, Sudipta, if you can a little bit talk about, I introduce the topic of nanoscience, advanced material processing a little bit to our audience because everyone may not be aware of it. That might be a good way to start.
Yeah, early on in my academic career, I looked into materials at small scale, mostly at nanoscale. We all know the definition of nanoscale now. But in a general layman term, if you take a human hair and splice it 100,000 times, that one of that 100,000 times is that small, few nanometer that we're talking about. So what's the advantage of going in that small scale? The advantage of going in that small scale now, the same material, you can really manipulate the atoms the way I like to. I'll give you a classic example. I give a kind of a tease question in the class sometimes saying, we all know gold, right? We love gold. We know the color of gold, evolution, nature. The question is, when gold is not golden? So in nanoscale, the same gold will look like red because of certain physics called surface plasma resonance. And those things people were looking into back in, just after early hundreds of BCs. The stained glass windows, they were making these colorful windows, but they're actually freezing the nanoparticles of gold to give these different colors. So in a nutshell, that's the definition of nanoscale, some application. And there are many, many applications now that you can see that nanotechnology is now in many products.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the core topic for today also is, how do you power innovation through research, right? And again, you have been at the forefront of fantastic research for decades. Can you a little bit break it down for us? So, when you look at research on a topic, in your case, nanoscience and, nanoparticles and related stuff, what are the building blocks? How do you kind of decode a good research? If you a little bit talk about your approach to it, your methodology, that'll be very good.
So I think let's start with research, right? Research is, one needs to have good patients, number one. Number two, needs to have good observation, right? You mentioned to me that I used to play in the goalkeeper positions, right? And in goalkeeper, you actually watch the whole game. and you let your teammates know what is the strategy, right? So same thing in research, you really observe. In research, there is no good or bad data. Data is data. That's something you have to really understand. So in my own case, when we are looking into a material in nanoscale, we didn't know. We are trying to do something, and we're trying to make the same material in a much, much smaller scale. And then understanding their chemistry and physics, and we find some unique observation about mostly on catalytic properties. And initially, we didn't believe that it's going to happen. And we repeat. So research, you need to repeat to make sure the observation that you're seeing is correct. Because many times there can be other parameters which can lead to results that you are not expecting. Sometimes the unexpected results are the best results, right? So, and that's why I think decoding the results in a more meaningful way, you really need to go back again that what I'm saying, does it follow any principles? Can I really explain it? If it doesn't follow any principles, and if I get repeated data all the time, now I need to come up with some principles to explain things, right? So it is a long process, but at the end, then you put the results out for disclosures if you want to, put the results out for publication. Remember, they're all peer reviewed, even in patent examiners are there. It takes time. So now your work, either disclosing the work as a patent or disclosing the work as a paper, now independently reviewed by peer review process. And then, of course, when it gets accepted, then you feel something that you kind of accomplished. So there are the many steps in the research process that you really have to follow. But most importantly is that patience is very important, and repeating the results are very important. And a good, when I say observation, right, a good record keeping is very important. And good record keeping is important in all disciplines. Either you do marketing, either you do science, you do anything else, because that becomes your to-go material to look back 10 years down the road, if somebody can repeat the same thing or not, right? So those are very important as well. So these are many steps in the research in nanoscience or any science, to be honest.
I mean, some of the stuff that you said, I can see even, our engineers also take inspiration from that. Like, very interesting. Right. Data is data, right? And the patience part, and I'm glad you said the record keeping part as well, right? And it's absolutely, it's important for any work, any engineering, any research. Probably these are the kind of principles that, kind of core principles that you keep on going back to. Nicely said.
And not only that, students here take a class on ethics in science and technology. I think that ethics is very important. So
absolutely. And with the whole new topic of AI and all that, the whole ethics part is, again, coming back as a big question that a lot of people are still kind of trying to crack, right?
Sure.
Very well said. One of the things I'm sure, you're part of the academic research in your area as well. It's also to bring value to all the stakeholders. In your case, yourself, your students, academicians, industry, everyone, right? Can you a little bit talk about how do you look at bringing value through your research? How do you kind of,
Yeah, so I think I categorize research into multiple areas. One, you do some research that you are passionate about. You want to really explore the field of this particular material and their physics and chemistry or the engineering aspects, right? If you are an experimentalist, you need to have funding, right? So you need to really apply for funding. There are also times that an industry comes up with a problem that they don't have time to solve. They give this problem to you. So now, and sometimes most of the time you cannot publish, you cannot do anything else. But it is also important that if you can solve this problem for the industry, you have an immediate impact in the society. For example, a bridge fails, maybe a material and a fastener fails. How do you know what really happened? This is a mechanical failure, so you need to really look into such things, right? So there are industrial research where you can utilize your value of understanding to really solve that problem, right? So nothing is wastage. Whatever you study in class, whatever you do research in your lab, fundamental research, but you are now extending your know-how to understand. May not be in your area, but so what I'm trying to say is that you have some basic building blocks of either materials engineering or mechanical or electrical that you studied. Can I really apply this knowledge to them? And that's why I tell many people or the students that it doesn't matter what you do research. It just makes sure that you understand how to solve the problem. Your analytical skills are very important. And if your analytical skills are there, then probably you can solve many problems. So that's very critical. So when you talk to the industries, you understand the problem, you solve the problem. Now you go back to your fundamental research. Okay, I've done this and that. Can I really apply to this to the next level? So there are two ways to do it. Either you talk to some stakeholder in the industry, or you go for a disclosure or patent if it's unique in nature, or you or your people can do startups to see where it can go. Of course, you apply for funding, all kinds of things. So that's important. Now, what happens in lab research to get to the commercial sector is quite hard, actually.
Right.
It's very hard.
Right.
But you need a different kind of thinking. What I do a 5 milligram of the material nanoscale for whatever you take it. Now somebody says, oh, I need 5 kg. So now your recipe has to change. This has happened to me in my group. And a classic example, a student working on nanomaterials for energy application. Now he's doing really well. And it is a big sense of satisfaction when you say, wow, now from 5 milligram I can do to 5 kg. You build all these reactors, this and that. That takes a lot of understanding and science. So the scalability, either large-scale manufacturing or scalability to industrial sector or scalability to societal sector, this all needs that thinking process. And that thinking process needs to be very open. You cannot close your eyes. You have to look around. You have to learn from things. It can be nature, it can be people, it can be paper, it can be studying different aspects.
Very, very interesting. I mean, I can see this mental model, how our colleagues, our, people in our industry as well, absolutely kind of getting inspired with this mental model. What you said that, the analytical skills, absolutely important, right? Keeping the open one. Again, I personally am a very big fan of, keeping a very open innovation as a part of the organization rather than just, kind of having a closed loop kind of a thing. Once you start solving the problem, your analytical skills and all of those, absolutely. I mean, definitely in our industry as well, I can see. And the other one that you said, Sudipta, which is, you start with a small one, then you scale up, the scalability, right? I've seen it in our situation as well. You prove a certain, let's say, an algorithm with a small set of data, and now you go to the millions and billions set of data to prove and scale it up. So it's kind of the same mental model. I can see it applying everywhere. Very nicely said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right. Again, you have done so many research topics and created so many breakthroughs. One of the recent ones I saw, one of the YouTube videos, and also read the article a little bit, which is how one of your very old research led to some of the nanomaterial, which is now helping to fight COVID. And I think you said that, no research goes to waste, right? Can you a little bit talk about that, how it was a discovery from way back and how it is fighting COVID at the moment?
Correct. So there's one thing I did very seriously during my undergraduate thesis. All had to take a thesis. I think that was pretty good. I was introduced to a material called rare earths, mostly used for steel industries because I was a metallurgist. Of course, I owe to my former professors, Professor Sonoth Rai and Subir Bose from IIT KGP, for that, to introduce me to that subject. But off and on, I really toyed with this material. And in fact, 25 years back, when we were making this material as a small scale, and by mistake, we find some of their biological properties for the first time. And that biological properties are quite wide. So we ended up working with people to really find biological properties. The physics and chemistry of the properties were known before. But in small scale, biological properties were not known. So we saw that. Making fast forward in 2020, when COVID came along, there were a lot of rapid response type grants were given in the US to solve things. PPEs are in short supply. A lot of things were happening, right? Initially, we started that. How do you make surfaces that'll be antiviral, regenerative? You don't have to coat. So we ended up taking two projects, one with a company, the other one with our grad students. The same material we worked 25, 30 years back almost now, but in nanoscale, this has these properties that can self-generate we call it an oxygen radical, and that radical oxidizes anything when it sees it. So these viruses and bacteria were readily oxidized when we coat these surfaces with these materials. So now you can see that the same material, what is to work for a coating of a steel to protect from high temperature corrosion, or to polish your microelectronic device like your cell phone and PDAs, this material goes through this process all the time. Now, all of a sudden, you are seeing the application into virus and the bacteria and all kinds of pathogen deactivation processes. So essentially, in nanoscale, you are tweaking this material to do multiple aspects. Now you are discovering various facets of this material. So one of the things is very important research that just because somebody told you it's not going to work, don't buy into it. You do it yourself first and prove it that it works or it doesn't work. You might see a lot of literature who makes something different, but unless you do it yourself, you don't know. That's why I tell people one of the most important examples that I give is that observe it, do it yourself, make the decision by yourself by looking into it. I think that's very important. And so don't be biased. So make your own decision based on the results you achieve. Yeah. So I think I just gave you a fast forward of the material that I learned, went into a different scale. Now you have multifaceted interaction as well. So.
No, very interesting. And again, the thoughts that you shared, Sudipta, to me, it applies to pretty much any science and engineering thought process as well. Make your own observations based on that. Very, very interesting. And again, I really, like the fact that you went back to your almost 30-year-old research, and that, became so useful for a breakthrough during the COVID period. I'll probably ask our team to put the link in the chat as well. It's an amazing discovery.
In fact, I probably shared the old thesis. I still keep it.
I saw that.
It's kind of yellowish. The paper is getting yellowish. At that time, there was not much computer.
It did
There
look
was
very
dot matrix printer. And to be honest with you, some of the captions I used Ravon stickers. At that time, we not have much access to computer as well.
Right.
So
Right.
that paper is getting old. So it's in nature. So I have to show it. Thank you.
Interesting. Absolutely. And as a kind of a little bit of a follow up and going on a little bit of the other side, which is, since you have been part of so many experiments, and I'm sure there have been cases where some experiments, some research didn't exactly go the way you wanted. I don't want to call it a failure, but probably even, didn't go exactly as planned, right? When something like that happens, right? Any experiment that, you're a little bit disappointed, how do you factor that in? How do you kind of, put it back to track, so to say? And how do you react to that?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Many of the times it doesn't go as planned in experimental research, and it has happened to us all the time. But what you learn from that is very important. It's just because I got a B, I'm not a bad student. You have to move on. You have to learn why I got an B if you're expecting an A, and maybe make these corrections. Now, may not be the same example, but in research, it didn't work the way, because we always devise a hypothesis. A hypothesis doesn't get proven. There is also a backup thing. What happens then? So you understand something, what really came out of it is very important. And once you know what the science came out of the hypothesis that you were not expecting, there may be other needs for that hypothesis. Do you change the hypothesis? So nothing is wastage. As I said, a data is data. As long you have done proper way of experimentation. That's why the reputation of data is very important, right? So in my opinion, there's no good or bad data. I think data is data. What you learn is you may not expect that data. That's different. Just because it didn't work for this, say, for instance, pathogen killing, but it may work for something else. And that exactly happens. So I think you have to take the whole thing in perspective. You have to note it down, what I observed, what I didn't get it. Can I fix it? And even if I cannot fix it, now can I use this theory to do something else? So nothing at the end is wastage, as long as you have done the experiment in a proper way and documented in a proper way. I think that's key, actually. Many times we hurry up on experiments, we make mistakes, and I'll give you a classic example. We have the pipettes. There are a lot of pipettes errors out there. Instead of measuring 1 milliliter, you end up measuring 5 milliliters, say, for instance. Now, of course, when you do a reaction to make materials, of course, they'll be wrong. So those it's just like when you are starting this discussion process, you are checking your cameras, you're checking your videos, same thing in experiment. You check all the parameters. You have too many variables, then you have a problem. You have too many default in the experiment, you have a problem. So that observation is key. So that is one of the things that I think is very important.
I really like that, there's no good or bad data. I think that's. I hope our engineers are also taking a note of that. That's really interesting. And on this, continuing on the topic of breakthroughs, right? So in Nagarro, we also encourage everyone to think breakthroughs for our customers. So kind of our tagline also says thinking breakthrough. That's something we are all very passionate about. We are committed to bringing breakthroughs to our customers as well. One of the things I might want to pick your brain is, how do you identify a breakthrough? Is there any pattern when you are in that process? Is there any signal? Is the pattern? What kind of is your mental model of identifying, hey, this is a potential big breakthrough?
Yeah, so this question is a loaded question, can have many answers. I think, how do you identify breakthroughs, right? So I'll give you a classic example. When we're working on the same material called rare earth family materials, we never knew that it will have some antioxidant like enzymes or tablets we take properties, right? So when we found these properties, we looked into all over the literature and we didn't see it, right? And then we say that, well, this particular material can have a lot of implication in biomedical applications. This can be a major breakthrough because it was not there. So nothing was documented. So now you identify this as a material can have quite a bit of societal impact. So that's one of the way you can create breakthroughs, right? Like even people who work on the batteries, if you can increase the energy density and battery shelf life, you don't have to change your battery all the time. That's why the batteries, and you can see that batteries are coming in electric vehicles. I call it a breakthrough because now you don't have to pollute the environment. So there's a huge impact in the climate. So this type of, sometimes it can be small things that can create large impact in the society. And I call it, those are breakthroughs. Same thing. We teach a class on materials in society. It goes back from, Stone Age to Clay Age to Bronze Age to Iron Age. Now we have Silicon Age. Tomorrow will be Biomedical Age. I think every age, when they try to make spears for hunting and all these things to have food, that making the spear itself was a breakthrough. Later on, it came as a steel-making process in 1900s and all kinds of things. But those some of the things of reduction and oxidation still played an important role, which was done thousands and thousands of years back. So these are some of the observations that I think is important to identify a potential, I would say potential breakthroughs. Same thing in the software area. AI, ML, all kinds of things have tremendously helped us to reduce our experimental process. I'll give you a classic example. When we are working on capturing virus on a material surface, what biomolecules we want to choose? There are hundreds and hundreds of them. So we have a colleague who did the modeling for us because those are very expensive for us to do. So from hundreds of molecules, we come down to only 7 or 8. And it worked. It saved. And that's probably one of the reasons now you have a lot of breakthroughs in medicinal discoveries as well. Because of the software, because of the AI, because of the ML, all kinds of things really helped. So these are, I would say, breakthroughs in the software processes, understanding, how to design new things.
Absolutely. Just quick recap for in case someone has joined a little bit late. We are talking to Dr. Sudipta Seal about how research powers breakthrough innovations. And again, Dr. Seal does not need any introduction, but he's one of the leading researchers in the field of nanoscience. I picked up something you said very interesting, Sudipta, which is when you are looking for answers, looking for breakthroughs. How important is framing the question, right? Because you said, what am I trying to find, right? Because based on that, a lot of your, the next steps and what you are looking for might kind of change the direction and things like that. Do you pay attention to that, like how you exactly frame the question, frame the problem statement?
Yes, I think when we get into experimental research, whatever that may be, even in software, even in computer science, I believe in hypothesis. A statement of a hypothesis. Well, if I do this, I'll get this, right? And then I break it down. From the hypothesis, what are the objectives? 1, 2, 3. Now I want to ask the questions, how I'm going to achieve the objectives.
Right.
For that, I need to design 1, 2, 3 again experiment. Each objectives and experiment is a task to me. In a task, At the end of the task, I have to put something called outcome, what I'm going to get out of it. Then my next question in that task will be, what are the challenges I may face? If somebody says, I don't face challenges, I don't think that's correct. So I'm asking the same question, what challenges I'm faced before I do anything else. I'm writing things down. Okay, if I face this challenge, I have some know-how. What are my alternative solutions? So if you can devise 1, 2, 3 like that, I think rest of the things will be easy. For that, you need to really go back and read the literature. I think that's very key. Many times we don't read literatures. Nowadays, you can get everything on computer, Google search and all kinds of things, right? So I think that reading the literature is very important because most of the time you are faced with new problems, especially in industry. You encounter new problems all the time. But I think that thinking process, that dumb it down in a task and a skeleton, is key to really framework of a solution to a problem that you're facing.
No, absolutely. And again, I'm just thinking back how we, talk to our customers. A lot of them are, industrial customers as well. And the way we also kind of create our mental model is exactly what you said. The framing of the question, ask that. I mean, absolutely. I'm seriously hoping our colleagues and our engineers and even maybe there are students on the call, they're making a note of that. Very, very interesting stuff.
And I think this thinking process, actually something happened in Zoom. I like Zoom because now I can talk to my research group every day, even for 10 minutes. We have a habit. We meet for 10 minutes. We talk about any problems or solutions. If I have 10 people, 1 minute each. That's it. And I think some of the times you can do these things with Zoom, or sometimes I notice something happen over a coffee, over some food. I like food anyway. And I think if you can make this discussion as a teaming environment very informal, there are a lot of things come out of it. So
true. No, very true. I'm going to pick up a little bit on, I think you touched about it a few minutes back, which is, you do work with a lot of startups, a lot of early stage inventors as well. You probably, guide them, influence them, inspire them. Can you a little bit talk about your take on the, the whole startup ecosystem related to your field, how you look at it, how you are working with them, inspiring them?
Well, first of all, it's an open mind. You got to have startup. You need to really work hard. And I think there are a lot of failures come in startups. As you know, 90% of startup fails. There's a valley of death and all those things, right? So you need to have patience. I think any research or startup, you need to have a very clear objective. And if you believe in that objective, go 100% with it. I myself don't do startup, but there are students, there are people that have worked with them and all those things. And I think really you need to invest a lot of your time and hard work because you need to raise capital. If you're an experimental company, there's a lot of challenges ahead, right? Of course, here in the United States, we have grants that we can apply for and all those things, right? In startups, you need to really understand your customer base. Because at some point, you're going to sell your product, whatever that product may be. So I think the customer survey is very important. Customer interaction is very important. Once you know your customer base, then you also need to know, I'm not an economist, but I can say you need to know your price point. Now, sometimes price can be higher, depends on application. It can be high quality. I don't believe in low price also. I believe in high quality. I think that's important for me. We have seen many products in our commercial market, maybe cheap, but they only last for 6 months.
Right.
These will solve my purpose. So I think you need to know your price point, you know your economic values. The other two things are very important to me. Sustainability. I'm making materials, there are chemicals involved and all this thing. Okay, it's a great material in life, but it's not good for the human being or the human race. That fails. It's not good for my environmental impact. My water is going to get polluted. Done. That fails. It might create a lot of emission that fails because
A lot of plastic waste.
I think for a science and technology, we need to pay attention to the climate. We need to pay attention to the environment. We call it, Carl Sagan's word, a pale blue planet. I think we are very lucky to have this planet. We call it a Goldilocks zone, right? We have the inhabitants. Let's keep this planet alive and keep this planet very healthy. So these are the things also we need to keep in touch. These are the points also. It's very important for any startups or any company or any industry.
Any company, right. No, I mean, we also always talk about exactly what you said, that know your customer. That's the first thing, knowing your point. And I totally agree with you that price to me is the secondary conversation. The first thing is the value. If there is value, anyone will pay the right
Absolutely.
price. Right? It's not about the cheapest price for pretty much anything. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. My next, this thing is probably a lot of the listeners in the call, they can also take inspiration from particularly this question, which is, so you work with a lot of bright students from all over the world. You guide them. Students are doing PhD under your guidance, and they're obviously very smart. How do you keep smart people engaged? And again, in your scenario, you probably have to keep them engaged for a little bit longer period of time, few years. How do you keep very smart people engaged for a little bit of a longer period of time?
That's good. As a grad student, always a challenge. You got to finish your degree, then find a job, whatever that may be. You need to make a living. I understand all these things. I've gone through the process. We all go through. I think engagement in the work is very important, right? I think that's why a continuous communication with your mentor is very important, or your advisor, whoever you call it, or your boss or peer is very important. That's why we sometimes do meeting. My sense is not for the sake of it. For the sake of it, we discuss things. Sometimes you ask the question, what did you fail today? If you always say, I succeed every day, that means there's something wrong also. If you fail every day, there's also something wrong. So the other question, what did you accomplish today? What did you fail? What is your observation? Something, because every time in lab, things go wrong. Okay. And I think if you keep them engaged by talking to them is very important. Number one. Number two, empower them. Let them find their own problem as well. Let them find collaborations. Send them out to conferences and meetings if you can. There are plenty in this country. There's plenty of conferences of money. You can have to apply for it. Now, when you go to a conference, seeing 4,000 people, say, for a conference, that opens their horizon. They present a paper. They present a thing. They make networking. Sometimes networking for matchmaking too. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Networking for jobs. You see many people from many parts of the world. Now all conferences are international conferences, right?
Right.
So get them out of the four walls of the lab. Do other things. Have them apply for various awards. You got to have resume building too. So you need to give them a holistic experience as well. In my group, since we have a lot of people from a lot of ethnic background, for the last 20, 25 years, we have every semester as a potluck where you go to cook, including myself. And I find food is a common way to unite them and engage them, to be honest with you. So these are many things a grad student or a student that they can do to engage, not just doing research, but many other things as well. So,
absolutely, I really like the couple of these questions that you said, and I hope a lot of even the project managers in the IT industry, they would ask every day their team exactly those two questions: what did you succeed? What was the failure? I think asking those very powerful. And again, it's a question probably for any science, any engineering, to any human being, rather, anyone who is trying to do something. These are fantastic questions to ask. Very nicely said. And again, probably, hard work is probably one kind of a given parameter. There's no substitute of that. In any field, I'm sure, in your field, probably it's even more, relevant. How do you little bit see that, doing the hard work for an extended period of time? I think before the call, we were also talking about some of the issues that has come, kind of mental issues, things like that. How do you sustain a lot of hard work for a longer period of time? Even for you.
When I mean by hard work, I don't mean by just hard work by itself. Okay. Don't do work just because you have to work. Hard work, in my thing, is that in any problem, you have many facets. And you need hours to really find those facets. That's what I mean by hard work. I don't want you to do hard work days and days and days and days again without getting anything. But I want you to do hard work and at the same time understand the problem, what you are trying to achieve, right? And sometimes some people will get the job done in 5 hours. Some people sometimes get the job in 50 hours, right? So I think if your objective is clear, if your goal is clear, then hard work has a meaning. If your objective and goals are not clear, then no matter how hard you work, you may not achieve that goal. So I think those skeleton needs to be set first. And I think in industry, you guys do that all the time. That skeleton needs to set first. Same thing in the lab that I do, that here is what we're trying to solve. And sometimes we have a time limit for it, industry. I need to finish the project in 6 months. I need a report by now. And that report has to be meaningful, what they're looking for. Sometimes it's not. We tell them honestly, boss, you cannot do this. This is what our observation is. You can repeat it in your own place and let us know if it's something different. Never happened. So.
No, I agree. A little bit connected to the industry topic. So again, you connect with a lot of different industries. Can I maybe pick your brain on maybe top 2-3 things that you think in general, I'm generalizing the word industry a little bit, what we can learn from the academic research, how our connects can be a little bit improved, and what more would you like to see from the industry? Your thoughts on that?
I think, in my opinion, that if my research is more connected to industrial problem and solutions, in my opinion, I'll understand much more the problem and the science behind it. That may not be true for others. There are a lot of fundamental problems out there, like a photoelectric equation, right? It was Einstein's photoelectric theory, got the Nobel. At that time, probably people didn't think that way, right? Today, there are a lot of instruments based on this, right? So sometimes some of the impact will come much later on. Sometimes some impact you need. So 2 things, low-hanging fruit is also there, and the long-term achievement is also there too. So there are both places, right? So if, in my opinion, some of the research can apply to industrial things, so that's why industry has to really work together with the universities, or university has to work together with the industries. We do that. Sometimes IPs can be a barrier. There are challenges as well. And that's why we leave it out to our technology transfer office to deal with it. But I think if academia and industry works more together, I think our impact in the society will be much more as well. Because industry is the one who is going to bring the product to you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you the basis of the theory behind that product, possibly. But it's the industry. Without that, we are nowhere. Take your cell phone as an example. You can have all the semiconductor material and theory. It's all about material there, right? Theories. If somebody don't know how to put a package together in a fabrication, and now you have the software to play with, you're not going to have your cell phones, right? Look at the impact of the cell phones, right? So that's important. That's key. So more together interaction I think is very vital. Both sides have to come to the table to really work together.
Absolutely. Just a reminder to all the listeners, we have 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat as well. And a little bit continuing on that, the industry part of it. I know you are involved in a lot of the industry programs to upskill, the knowledge workers, upskill the knowledge of the industry level is absolutely crucial. Can you maybe talk about a few good examples, your observations where you have successfully the upskill of the industry, the knowledge level, and something that maybe we can take inspiration from?
Long time back when I arrived at UCF, there was a little project from DC. And the project was to understand the wheels of the roller coaster rides. Initially, I didn't know. The project was very small. What happens during roller coaster ride, there is a steel core and there is a thick polymer wheel on top of it. When it goes bad, you have to stop the ride. A lot of money gets wasted, right? So they were trying various polymer wheels. And they were giving those wheels to me to fingerprint them using our spectroscopic technique. There was no paper, there was no patent on this. But I thought it was a small project, probably one of the smallest projects to me, but I thought it was very impactful for me. This is a real industrial problem. If I can tell them, okay, if you take this polymer as a wheel, not this, and all these things, I think they will have a huge impact. And the report that produced to the company was later on liked very much. And I think this is one of the things that I give you an example of maybe a smaller problem, maybe an easier problem, but an university can take on this problem and give their know-how to them, and they can make better design of the material into those wheels. And, it's the entertainment industry, so I love it. So these are fun projects to me. I can give you an example, like this.
So on that, I do see an audience question from Ananda, which is, you are looking at, innovation, you're looking at complete breakthrough. And as a scientist, when you are looking at it, how do you make it a habit? And also, do you kind of make it like the one that you said earlier, which is, do you first make a grand challenge first? Or do you make, hey, let me make it small ones? And how do you make it into a habit of, doing that as your smaller building blocks?
I don't make anything as a habit. That's the thing. I'll keep an open mind. I tell my students an open mind. I go with the flow, what happens, because I don't want to set an expectation. Because sometimes when you set an expectation, in my opinion, if you don't achieve the expectation, you might get demoralized. That's my opinion. I keep an open mind. Yes, we have a problem. Yes, we want to do this. Yes, this is a new application area. And as we go along doing this, if we find some breakthroughs, we'll pick that up. But we don't go out to look for breakthroughs. We don't go out to look for challenges. Challenges do come. But we have a framework of mind that if I do this way, I may do that. And that comes with the experience, right? So I would say keep an open mind to this, and I don't set expectation. Take it as it comes.
Nice.
So I would say, in colloquial language, chill out.
Nice. I do see one more audience question. They're asking, how do someone like, from the industry, how can they get started in the field of research? Someone who has spent a little bit of time in the industry, is there anything that you can throw light on? I mean, how do they get started?
A hard question, because I never wanted to do research. I came from a research family background like you, Kanchan, I'm sure. I never wanted to be. But I think that thesis we all did back home, I found something in it. The ethics of it, there is a discipline to it. There is some finding in it. And I didn't go into research career. I worked in industry in a short span. But I think something came into my mind that I think it's probably, I'm free to do a lot of things. I like freedom. In my opinion, I like freedom and I like to free to do something. I may, even if I fail, I don't have to answer to someone. If I succeed, that's well. Getting involved in research, nowadays you see many examples, people in high school getting involved in research who were never exposed to this one. Not bad. Our world is changing. Our economy is changing. Our society is changing. We also have to change. So if you like to exercise your mind in a free way, get involved in research, time is up to you when you want to do it. I cannot tell you what time you want to get involved in research. Research can be anything. Research can be in industry. Research can be in driving an auto rickshaw. There can be research too. How do I make this little more flexible? Yeah. Research is everywhere. Or I'm selling vegetables on a little cart and I make this cart now EV, battery operated. So research is everywhere. So it's up to you when you want to get involved in research. But if you want to exercise your free thinking mind, then it's very important. So.
And again, you are hinting towards the, how people need to be empowered. That's also
right.
key. And it's funny that you go back to our, the final year, the research, the paper that we did in our college. Right. Believe it or not, in 91, my topic was neural networks. We didn't call it AI that time, but it was neural networks in 1991. So yeah, it's interesting. Another question I see is, you must get a lot of different topics that come to you, maybe from other, folks in the industry, maybe from students they want to do research on. Is there a process or a mental model that you have to choose a topic A versus B versus C?
Yeah. Yes, very much so. We get a lot of topics in the area that we have experts on. We don't take topics which are not an expert, then we collaborate with others, right? Like for AI and ML, we collaborate with our own faculty colleagues, right? When people come up with the research topic, like student, I said, yes, now find out how much money it will take. We are not computer scientists, we are experimentalists. It costs money for us. Then we say if I have the resources or not. If I have the resources, let's go for it. If I don't have the resources, we go back and forth. What we're going to achieve, what the impact we're going to do. And if I agree to it, because I'm the one who has to fund this project, and I have to find the money for this because we're experimentalists. And when we need to go back and forth, I'm convinced enough, then I give a time limit for 6 months. Because everything has to have a Gantt chart, unfortunately, because it's all money-driven process. Somebody has to graduate. You cannot stay here for long. And in 6 months, what we get out of it, let's see. So these are some of the framework model we do. I'm sure you do the same thing in industry. I'm a little flexible on this, but I do have a timeline and a chart for this, something like that.
Nice.
And if I see it valuable, that I can write a proposal on it to get funding, sure. We do this all the time. In fact, in order to get funding from agencies, we have to work on preliminary data. And sometimes we fund from our resources to do these things. That happens all the time. But there's a time limit for it. 6 months to a year at the most.
Yeah, yeah.
Because nobody's going to give you the money to test your hypothesis.
Unlimited resources, no. Absolutely. No. I mean, if you have unlimited resources available, you can do anything.
Absolutely.
That's not like. Yeah. And interesting follow-up is now, and I think you don't have that problem. But if you go back 20 years or so, right. Early, part of your research life, I'm sure you had to do a lot of research in a very frugal way, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So, anything on that? If you have a very limited.
Yeah, I started my own life here at a very minimal startup. I know people are listening. This is open. Everybody can listen. And there was nothing there. So I had to write proposals. I had to work on it. I had to work hard to keep. When the students come with a nice lab, they said, well, we have this. But I tell people, since we are experimentalists, just because you have 5 instruments, that doesn't mean you will make a world-class research. No. I think you have to think through it first. And back in those days, there are students who came to my lab with minimal research infrastructure that we had. They did phenomenally well. Thinking was much more. So there is a sweet spot there. If you have too many instruments, there is not much thinking. Oh, let's just go and do it and all kinds of things. No, not at all. It's good to have that infrastructure. But it's not good to have without thinking, use that infrastructure. Then you will not learn anything. Like nowadays, there is nothing called, log table or, those rulers and all those things. Everything is calculated, right? I think that basic 101 principle is still valid today.
And absolutely, I mean, the same principle, I think it works in industry everywhere. I think even we insist on it on a regular basis as well. I see we are getting very close to the end. Before I, end this amazing, very interesting discussion, one thing I definitely want you to address is we do have a lot of young listeners listening to this particular, sommelier chat. There are a lot of young engineers who just started their journey in the industry. Anything for them? What would you tell them to focus on? How would you tell them to approach? I think they would love to hear from you.
Number 1, have an open mind. Number 2, work hard and be ethical. Number 3, know your surroundings, help your surroundings. Be helpful, be collaborative, be a team person. Number 4, never lose hope. Number 5, a bad data can be a very important data for you. As I said, data is data. Number 6, the last one, be happy what you do, be passionate what you do. Take care of your health. Take care of your family. Be sustainable. Thank you.
No, that's amazing. And thank you so much, Sudipta, for spending the hour with us. And I hope everyone who was listening made notes. In the last comment that you said, how not to lose hope, enjoy what you do and take care of your health and family. That's, kind of, I think, goes across, industries, across countries, everywhere. To all of us, it does apply. And it's always amazing to chat with you, Dr. Seal. And very interesting discussion. I was monitoring some of the chat. People loved it. Thank you so much. And looking at the chat that I'm looking at, I think we need to invite you back for even some of the other topics as well. People definitely want to hear from you about, how do you little bit take care of, what are the different principles that you apply towards innovation. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go over all of them. Yeah. But it'll be a very interesting, probably a follow-up discussion on that as well. And on that, thank you so much. Take care. And hopefully.
Thank you, Kanchan, and thank you, Nagarro, for giving the opportunity and platform. And it was always good to talk to you. My friend goes back, I won't call it an old friend, but goes back all the way in 90s, a good colleague. And I think we should do it a little more. And hopefully we'll meet face to face at some point soon.
I plan to come and see you as next time I'm in your neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. And thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.